sort of famously or notoriously, depending on your political point of view, broke with the Bush administration and became a critic of it sort of around the second term, I believe. You know, we're in the Bay Area, not the most popular administration, the Bush administration. Right. So what were your main beefs with the Bush administration?
Well, okay, so just to get things, the record straight, you know, I thought that if there were a way of getting rid of Saddam Hussein, it would be of great benefit to the Iraqi people. I think that Bush and Condi Rice were basically right that the Arabs, you know, need democracy, as we're seeing now in the Arab Spring. What I really disagreed with was the use of American military power, you know, to bring about those changes, particularly in the absence of any kind of international support or consensus in favor of doing it. And as it turned out, the administration was much less competent than even I expected, you know, in terms of being prepared for all of the complex consequences that would come as a result of invading Iraq, and as a result they made it much worse than it, you know, than it had to be.
But am I wrong in stating that you did argue for intervention as part of the Project for the New American Century?
Well, at that time, it was during the Clinton administration, and the object was never that we just invade. You know, this was before September 11th, and so invasion was just off the table. Nobody would have considered advocating that. So the question was, you know, were there ways to sanction them further, to support internal, you know, dissident groups, to do other sorts of things that might bring down Saddam Hussein? And yes, I was in favor of that.
But you were opposed to a military invasion from the beginning, is that correct?
I would say that as the time in 2002, as we got closer and closer to the actual invasion, I just started disbelieving a lot of the arguments that the administration was putting forward as to why this would work and why it was necessary.
Okay. And did that make you sort of persona non grata within the conservative movement?
Well, with certain individuals, yes, I would say so.
Yeah.
Including some people that, you know, are fairly close friends of mine. So.
Okay. So did it actually change your relationships with?
With a few people. With a few, it didn't.
Yeah. Okay. And I guess my last question would be, I mean, I assume you still consider yourself a conservative.
It depends on the issue, but...
Okay. So we're in the Bay Area, which is probably the greatest concentration of progressives, you know, / liberals in the country. What do you think, perhaps, that people here are not getting?
Well, okay, so just in the first place, I just don't think that those labels are, you know, when I think of what my political preferences are, I don't start out by saying, well, I'm a conservative, so what does a conservative believe, right? I just think that that's not really a very helpful way to proceed. If I were to say, well, what's the biggest challenge facing us, it's obviously this long-term, you know, fiscal situation we're in, this huge budget deficit and the unsustainability of all of that. And I would say that both sides are going to have to bend a lot. So on the Republican side, they've gotten this religion, beginning with Reagan, that you can never raise taxes ever. So Paul Ryan, you know, he takes on, which I think was quite brave of him, Medicare, which is really the thing that's going to bankrupt us. But at the same time, he wants to cut taxes, and I think this is just a total non-starter. And on the progressive side, I think that if you do the math on some of these big entitlement programs, they're just going to have to, you know, they're going to have to change. And I think that the view that this is something that is, you know, morally necessary to, you know, protect the weak and so forth, I, you know, would agree with in principle, but it's just not going to work, and so there's going to have to be a lot of give there.
So it sounds like you perhaps are on board with the Obama approach in a broad way, at least according to his last big speech, where he talked about, well, he sort of danced around the edges of raising taxes, but also talked about we need to cut more.
I'm all in favor of raising taxes on you know, on the well-to-do, but he didn't go nearly as far as I would have hoped in actually saying, yes, you know, if we don't think about Social Security and Medicare and a really very different approach to them, that we're not going to solve this budget problem.